Hi, everybody. It's Mallory Grimste, coming to you live right now. It is 7 o'clock on Thursday, September 21st. I'm like super excited to be here. So, I did a thing again where I got behind on responding to your comments. So, I decided to come on here live. Well, I was curious if you guys were liking these or not. And when I had asked y'all were like, yes, please. So um, here I am. So let's get started. I'm gonna probably should have put this up beforehand, but I'm just gonna open up on my phone app the different comments and I'll be scrolling through them that way and responding. Please just keep in mind, just a little gentle disclaimer that this is not psychotherapy. While I am a licensed mental health therapist that is licensed to practice with people who are physically located in the states of Connecticut and New York, that's where my license is issued through and recognized by. Unfortunately, we're not there yet where we can just, treat wherever, however, within good reason, though also technology and the law just are so frustrating sometimes. But as of right now, today, that is how the licensing laws stand. So even though I am a licensed mental health therapist in this capacity, you are not my client. I am not your therapist. And I am sharing this information for educational and psychoeducational and informational purposes only. If you are finding that any of my responses or any of the questions are bringing up concerns for you and you feel like you do need to talk to somebody personally for licensed psychotherapy or other supportive services, please contact somebody who is a local in your area because they're more likely than not going to be licensed to practice in your area as well. And if you're in the United States of America or Canada, the crisis text line is accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by texting 741-741. They are in a multitude of other countries. I'm not going to be able to run through all of them all right now because that's not what this is about, but you can certainly Google it. YouTube has put together a great comprehensive list of most popular countries that are served by YouTube and their crisis line information. So I would start there too. Okay, that's my little mini disclaimer. This TLDR is this is not psychotherapy. Okay, so I did get some messages on Instagram. I'm going to go through first on my YouTube comments that I have here, and I'm going to work from oldest to most recent. So the oldest one was about a month ago, and I'll go through like that. So some of these I haven't even like read before, so just bear with me for a minute. Okay, so the first one is 4 ways to self or to help teens who struggle with self-harm. This is one of my very, very old videos. So I'm glad it's still making the rounds and I'm hoping that it's helpful. But the very first comment here is what's self-harm? So self-harm is literally what it says. It's when you have intentionally inflicted harm on yourself. Usually, there's some psychological reason around that, whether it is conscious or unconscious. Sometimes self harm is unconscious, but it's where you are inflicting harm to yourself. So I'm not going to go into all the various ways that could fall under that category. um, one, that's not what my channel is about. I'm not here to spread that sort of information. But two, I also am very much of the mindset that the way that we can help with these things is not necessarily talking about how it is or how to define it. I mean, if you are struggling with something or you know somebody who's struggling with something like that, you know, whatever we call it or however we talk about it, it's like a whole other thing. What diagnosis is categorized under, like that's a whole other hoopla that I'll save for like another video maybe. But the ultimate thing is that we're here to talk about ways to cope or manage some of these things that contribute to this and how can you access the appropriate help. That's what my channel's about. That's what I'm about. And I'm hoping that that's what this can be about too. I mean, that video is literally about how to help teenagers who are struggling with self harm. And if you aren't sure if that's a category that you fall under or someone you know falls under, that's where I would highly recommend, like I was just talking about, linking up with a professional in your area and completing a client assessment so that they can appropriately assist you with that. Okay, so this was on a short that I had that was you're not sure if your therapist will tell your parents what you say in therapy. Um, yeah, so this is a popular one. A lot of people have concerns about confidentiality, especially working with the under 18 crowd. Um, every therapist is different, every protocol is different, every area of the world has different laws around this. So if you're not sure, ask your therapist directly. That's the best way to get the clearest answer. And if you don't agree or you don't understand the rationale, ask them about that too. Like, as therapists, the majority of us want to have discussions about this. We want to help clarify. And we are pretty used to having uncomfortable conversations. We've literally made a career out of it. We're weird that way. So don't be afraid to, ask your therapist either directly or indirectly. They may ask the follow up questions because we are a curious bunch, but we're not doing that to be like annoying or aggravating or anything like that. We're doing that because that's literally how we think and how we are trained to help. Okay, so the comment on this was I've been falling back into a wave of depression again. I'm not diagnosed, but it's there, lol. I haven't told my parents and no one knows. I don't know what to do. Can you please give me some advice? I have strict parents. I've been trying to hint about it by leading our conversations to be about mental health and stuff. Um, and then there's a little back and forth. So I'm going to read that too, in case you don't want to go searching for this. So another person wrote and said that if you want to go to a therapist, I would recommend talking with them. Be careful with your word choices though, and really make them feel like you need it because it can be too much to deal with it yourself. Or maybe you could ask your parents about them taking you somewhere to see if you can get diagnosed, or if you even have it, or if it might be something else. It can be hard to deal with things alone, so I really hope you find help in one way or another. So sweet. I love that. And then the original poster wrote, "Thank you so much. It's been getting worse, and I don't know what to do. This helped a lot." And then the responder wrote back, "You're welcome. I really hope it gets better." First of all, this is why I love YouTube and the YouTube community. Y'all are so helpful with each other. And as somebody who runs group therapy, I know how powerful community and connection can be to healing. So thank you for, taking this on and responding to this person and having this back and forth. I love to see it. So thank you. I agree with everything that this responder had shared with you. First of all, I'm really, really like sorry that you are feeling this way and that you are struggling so much. I know it can be really difficult asking for help, even if you have the most supportive parents in the world. Um, we inherently, especially during the teenage years, like to figure things out ourselves, right? And so realizing that part of figuring things out for ourselves is also knowing how to ask for support and help and get our needs met is like a mind blowing experience, right? So I would highly recommend if you haven't already, I have some videos. I have a playlist all about talking to your parents about mental health issues and struggles. One of which is if you are feeling depressed. That's one of the more popular ones. Um, hi, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to say that's right. Westbiexlu. um, if you have any comments or questions, like feel free to put them in the chat too. I want this to be a conversation. But I would highly recommend that if you are struggling, like this poster is on how to talk to your parents or how to get help, definitely check out those videos. I will try my best to remember to post a link to it in the comments later. I'm not great at multitasking on live things. So if I forget, please remind me. Or if somebody is watching this and they want to drop it in, that's totally fine too. Weston is your name. Hi, Weston. Um, okay. So next up, I'm just going to take a sip of my hot cocoa. Okay. So this was on another short of mine. Well, these are all the videos that I've created. I don't know why I keep saying that. Um, what therapists ask at your first appointment. So this is actually from a much longer video where I talk about what to expect from your first therapy session as a teenager. Because I get those questions a lot, as you can imagine, working with teens. And this person said, when I go to therapy, it makes me stress more. Oh, so that is actually could possibly be an okay thing. So, a lot of people, when they start going to therapy or they start getting to the heart or the root about what's contributing to the reason that they're showing up for therapy, it gets uncomfortable. As I mentioned earlier, as therapists, we deal with uncomfortable situations, conversations all the time. And it's not because we are like these sinister, like, ooh, evil, we love making people feel uncomfortable. That's not why. And I don't even totally buy into like the idea that like growth only happens in discomfort. Like I don't think that's great. I think that's actually, I don't know. But basically, where that could be really beneficial and useful is that's giving you some information. So when we start feeling uncomfortable like that, that's giving us signals that something new or unfamiliar is happening, or there's something potentially dangerous to our current circumstances. Now, as a human being, we have this self awareness piece where we can actually discern for ourselves like, is that accurate or not? And if you're having trouble with like, okay, I logically know that that's not accurate, like I am in a safe situation and a safe place, and yet like I can't like shake this feeling, or it's like exacerbating, or it's impacting me in other ways. That's where working with a therapist through that can be really helpful. And therapy is very meta. like, like I myself, my training and my whole practice is really relationally based. And so, with that, like talking about the experience in the therapy room and in the discussion with your therapist is going to have a massive trickle effect outside of the therapy room. It's one of the reasons why, when I work with teenagers, I've made a very conscientious, cautious choice that I work directly with the teenagers. I am not a family therapist. I may invite parents into a family therapy session from time to time, but it's always with the teenager's permission and knowledge and awareness, unless there's a safety risk. That's a different situation. But again, that person is going to be informed about that along the way. Okay, so I see Weston is writing. I honestly need help. I've been feeling really sleepy and very low energy. The only time I feel like doing anything is when I'm the only one here. I think I need one. Um, oh, do you mean you think you need a therapist, Weston? Um, it definitely, it sounds like I would love to be able to do a client assessment with you, but social media, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, is not sacred therapy. So, those are definitely, if those are things that you're struggling with and symptom wise, and you're considering linking up with a mental health therapist, I'm biased. I am a mental health therapist. I have seen it work for myself personally and for many of my clients. I wouldn't have made this a career if I didn't. um, but I'm also very well aware that therapy is not the only path or way to healing, and that often it's not like a one stop shop. So, the first step would be probably to find a therapist that is local in your area, who is licensed to practice with the things that you're struggling with for your age group. Um, Google is a great start for that, but asking your friends and your family members that you trust for advice about, who would they recommend, or are they aware of anybody? That's always like the best thing, like word of mouth. Um, if you are wanting to use your health insurance to pay for it, it means, or not means, the best way to do that would be to contact your insurance company and seeing who's in network and getting their advice. They often have case managers who can help link you up with appropriate people. Your primary care physician is often a direct go to and refer for a lot of these things. So you do not necessarily need a referral. Well, you have to check with your insurance company, but most of the time you don't need a referral from another physician to see a mental health provider. But if you are desiring of their advice, they're very well connected in the community for a bunch of different specialists, including mental health therapy. So those are probably like the big ones that I would start with. Um, and then, Weston, you asked, how often do you give advice? So, as mental health therapists, this is a great thing. As mental health therapists, that's not what we do. So, our training is actually not an advice giving. If you're looking for advice, that would be a coach, an educator, somebody in that capacity. A mental health therapist is going to work very similar to a physical therapist in that we will teach you different ways of feeling and thinking and processing through experiences and sometimes communicating. But we're not going to give you advice on, okay, these are your options. This is what I think you should do. The rare exception to that is when there is a safety concern or risk. Heck yeah, we're going to jump in. And that's not advice giving, that is safety planning. So that's probably like the big difference with that. And a common misconception. Because at the end of the day, if your therapist is giving you advice, one, you're kind of entering into friend category, which you can be friendly with your therapist, but you guys should not be on friends level. That's a very different relationship dynamic. The therapy dynamic is that the therapist is there to serve you and your goals and needs. Um, and by doing so, you are learning how to think and feel in healthier ways that match your goals for therapy, not our goals for you for therapy, but your own goals. Um, and then Weston, I was thinking about seeing one, but can't find one. Okay, so I just went over that. Would you mind being my person one, P? Um, I don't know what that means. Oh, your therapist, Weston? Um, so if anybody is interested in working with me as their therapist, oh, sorry, I just almost lost my phone. The best way to see if we're a good fit or a good match would be to go to my website, which is mallorygrimste.com. Go through all the different ways that people can work with me on there. My license is restricted to people who are physically located in the states of Connecticut or New York. My office is located in Connecticut. So if you're looking for in office therapy sessions, that's where you'd have to come. I can do telehealth with those, but those are, that's how you would access counseling with me personally. At the same time, I am not the only therapist. There are plenty of us that are awesome all throughout the world. Um, I do not personally know every therapist, but I know we're out there. I've been on like a mission to get more therapists out here on YouTube to talk about this stuff because it is a little lonely out here. But that would be like the best way to search for that. Um, if you are not in those locations and you have your own mental health therapist or you are looking for additional support in addition to therapy, I do have some guided self help programs, which are the self care bundle for teenagers, which are a bunch of um, resources that are geared towards self care practices like mindfulness, journaling, that sort of stuff, self care bingo. And then the other program that I have is the coping skills crash course, which is definitely like a lifelong strategy and skill. Um, so I hope that is helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna. I see there's more in the chat, Weston, but I'm gonna also just roll through some of these comments and then I'll come back to the chat. Um, okay. Mm. Okay, so this was a community poll that we had posted. So how do you guys like those polls, by the way? I don't know if y'all know, but Dominique, she's my administrative assistant. Love her. She's the person that if you do schedule anything with me, you'll talk to her first because she helps with all of that. But she puts together like nearly all of those polls. Like we talk about it, and then she like throws them together for us. And I love her polls. Right? They're cool. So this person had asked, if you suspect a friend is struggling with depression, what would you be most likely to do to support? And somebody had commented, getting a therapist is the best thing. They should. I've been there only to end up depressed. Um, I feel that. So this is why, like, a friendship level and a therapy relationship is different. One, therapists are literally trained to deal with this, and if they are not, they should be referring out to other therapists who have that training. Um, that would be the right thing to do. Um, and if you are finding that you are struggling with your ability to support or show up for a friend who is struggling with something like depression or anything else like that, um, it is okay and it is healthy to set a boundary for yourself and that friendship, to let them know, like, hey, I would love to be able to help. I've hit my capacity for this. I'm going to help direct you to somebody or something else that I know or I believe could be more helpful. Even as a mental health therapist, I am not a one size fits all approach. Wouldn't that be nice, right? I do my best work with teenagers who are struggling with things like depression, anxiety, trauma, self harm, and suicidal thinking. Those are like my go tos that I'm most comfortable helping and working with. Now, does that mean that if somebody comes in and they are struggling with drinking, that I can't help them? Probably not, but that's not going to be the work that I do my best work with them. And I want to make sure that I'm serving the people that I work with like to the best ability that I can. And so at that point, if it's beyond my skill set, I'm going to refer to another therapist or another level of support that can help them in that capacity. And any good therapist, which there are plenty of us out there, would do the same thing. So even as a friend level, like especially even if you are a therapist, you're not supposed to be treating or therapying with your friends, right? And family, which is actually a nice little like built-in buffer for some things. If you're a therapist and you know, but I would say that even in this situation, like reminding them, I'm not a therapist, but I think that working with a therapist could be great. And so you might be able to call with them. You can help them link up with a therapist. If you were in school, many schools in the United States of America have a school counseling department. Often they are guidance counselors, but even a lot of schools have school social workers who are a little more specialized in this. Uh, but they're really good supports that you can say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, excuse me, I'd like to come with you and like just introduce you to this person. Because sometimes showing up by yourself can be like the scariest part. Okay, so just taking a sip. Okay, so oh, again, this is on the confidentiality. Sure. What if you think you might need to get diagnosed with something? How would that go? Being a minor and all, would they have to specify to my parents about what it is or stuff? Like what would happen? This is a great question. Okay, so when you are under 18, depending on where you're located, you would want to make sure and double check with your local laws because they're different everywhere. I am not a lawyer. Please consult with your different laws. But the way that I personally operate in my practice is, and I'm again, Connecticut and New York based, is that when you are under 18, I'm very clear about what gets shared with parents and what does not. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. So, one of the first things that I do at the start of any new client assessment is actually before they even talk to me, they talk to Dominique, who's my administrative assistant, who's lovely, by the way. Um, and she goes over all this stuff with the parents, and then I go over it with the parents again with the teenager too, so that everybody's clear about what is considered confidential and what is shareable. One of the ways that I work in my own practice, and I'm clear about this from the beginning, is that we do share diagnosis. So your parents will know what the diagnosis is. And oftentimes, if you are working with insurance to any capacity, your insurance company will know that too. And so if you are on your parents' insurance plan, even if you are not talking to them, so this even happens with my adult clients who are 18, 19, 20, in college age, um, even though they are legally an adult, if they are on their parents' plan, guess who gets that explanation of benefits statement? Your parents. Guess who can access that? Your parents, because it's basically like a receipt that they get through insurance that lets them know what services were accessed on what date, how much they owe, and what the diagnosis is that they were treating. So that's something to keep in mind. So you just want to make sure about that. The one way to potentially circumvent that is to not use your insurance and to go completely self pay. So even not using out of network, but that's not in everybody's capacity or options. So one of the reasons that I do share diagnosis is one, your parents are probably going to find out anyway. But two, part of the way that I work is that I'm very much of the mindset that being able to talk about this stuff with your parents is going to have a huge benefit all around. So those are the main things when that happens. So yeah, you just have to double check the local law in your area, and then also the therapist that you are directly working with. Um, And then, oh, this is so sweet. So this person with what therapist asked at your first appointment, they said, "Do hope my therapy session happens. This eases my spirit to go to a therapist." I'm so happy. I make these videos to help with that. I can't tell you how many times I've had before I started doing these videos that people will come into my office even after doing these videos. I've been doing these for several years now. People come into my office and sometimes they say it right away. Sometimes it's after a few weeks or months of working together and they say, I was really scared to come and see a therapist. And I was like, why? We're really not a scary people. But I think one of the things that really motivated myself to, just show up on video and just be like, all right, here we go, is hearing these stories over and over again because the media loves to represent us as these like sinister beings. And of course, there are bad apples in any profession, like, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people, they really go into this field to help. Like, we want to be of service, we want to help within our capacity. Um, and so if there's, you know, I'm happy to hear that because that's a huge motivator for why I do this, so that we can destigmatize this, we can normalize it. It's really cool when people talk about, like, oh yeah, I was talking with my friends about what my therapist said, and their therapist said this, and I'm like, oh, I love that you guys are having these conversations. Okay, so Weston, I see you chatting. So I'm going to answer one more question on here, and then I'm going to go to the chat. Okay. Um, So this was from I'm a teen therapist and I'm answering, should I cover my self-harm scars? Um, this person said, I have been doing it since I was around 9. I did it for years and I was clean for 3 months and I just relapsed and I feel so guilty and they're not going to heal soon. And I have school, but I don't want anyone to know. But it's so hot in my school. I can't wear a hoodie. I don't know what to do. Um, First of all, congratulations for having a period of recovery. That is amazing. And I would just like to just remind anybody that if anybody is struggling with self harm or anything like this, like, I can't give direct advice. That's not what therapists do. I can't do assessments on here, but I can give general advice. And so I would redirect back to this video where I talked about 3 different areas to consider about when you're deciding whether or not you should show your self harm scars or not. One of which is considering your own capacity for other people's reactions, because not everybody has a healthy reaction, right? Some have wonderful, and some it's like, this is not about you, right? um, you want to make sure that you are comfortable talking or not talking about it. And then you also want to make sure that you are following whatever the rules are of whatever location you're in. So this video is actually inspired by the several conversations I've had where people were having summer jobs and so they weren't sure what their boss would say or what was okay or appropriate. So, recommend that you look at the dress code for your school, your job, wherever you are. That should give you some direction. But most places also have what's called a human resources department or HR. And they will be very clear with you with what is allowed and what is not allowed. And given that this is a medical condition, they do technically in America have to follow ADA guidelines and regulations. Now, just because something is a rule or a law does not always mean that people follow it, hence why we have lawsuits. So, um, you just want to make sure that they're adhering and respecting that as well. So I'm hoping, I know this was about from 3 weeks ago, so I'm hoping that this person that you were able to view that video and make a decision on what worked best for you and how you could get the support. Um, okay, and then okay, so Weston. Um, okay. Do I do over call? Yeah, I do offer telehealth services, which would be over video. But again, it's you got to be physically located in Connecticut or New York for that. Um, I don't know what you were responding to here, Wes, and I'm sorry, because this was a while up. Um, would you mind me asking you something? Um, how old are you? So I typically say I'm old enough. um, oh, that is nice. So you feel like it'll be okay and it's okay. Um, okay, great. All right, so back to the comments over here. Whew, I can't believe we've already been here a half hour and I don't even think I'm like halfway through. I might have to split this into two. Okay. So somebody I think was trying to be a little silly when what therapist asked at your first appointment and they said, have you ever hurt anyone? Me. Oh yes, I did, and I have no regrets. Um, so sometimes people do come to therapy and they have actually taken action on hurting someone or themselves. And we are not necessarily here to judge that. We are going to put in safety protocols because safety is of the utmost importance. But sometimes people are coming because they are struggling with something like anger or something like that. Um, that's a really common reason for people to come to therapy, and it can feel a little embarrassing. In like, you might worry that you might be in trouble, or like, are they going to judge you? And if you are getting that sense from your therapist from the beginning, even that's worth talking about with them and clarifying that. But you shouldn't be in trouble for getting help. I say that as a blanket statement, but that's not the reason why we offer therapy services. Um, Again, we are bound by ethical obligations as well as legal ones. Like, I am a mandated reporter. So that does mean that I have to report that to the appropriate people if there's safety risks present. But having a safety risk does not automatically mean, oh, we have to call the police or we have to call the hospital. There's a lot of steps and a lot of consideration into that. And having experienced something like that at one point does not mean like that's going to be the focus forever. Um, okay. So for some reason, for a little bit, people have been commenting about my list. So somebody said such a list, but she's right. So I don't think it's a surprise. I have a list. I am a walking cautionary tale to wear your retainer after you get braces. I do not, and I have quite the overbite list now. But I think, just who I am, we all have our quirks and flaws and everything. That was actually a really big reason why I put off even considering showing up for video. But I'm so glad that I did because even though, for some people that could be really hard for them to hear and listen to, I know that this information is really valuable. Um, and I'm not the only person. So they don't have to listen to me if my voice irritates them or they don't like it. You can keep on scrolling. Okay, so this person with the you're not sure if your therapist will tell your parents what you say in therapy. They said they will. They definitely will. 100%. Not 100%, but that's okay. Parents are the ones that paid the therapist after all. It's just a business and there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. So, yes and no. I think I covered this at length earlier already. I didn't realize that this comment was coming up, but it depends. There are different protocols and different regulations, and potentially, but potentially not. And also, if you're working with a therapist who operates from the same mindset that I do, we're going to work together on how to talk to your parents about that, and ultimately in a way that you as a teenager can talk to your parents without needing a therapist to be a filter. I actually prefer not to be a filter even from the get-go because that's not going to serve you because I'm not going to be with you 24/7, nor should I be with you 24/7, right? Like you should live your life. Um, Most of my therapy sessions are once a week, 45 minutes at most. So you have, I can't do the math on that, but there's a lot more hours and a lot more days in the week than just that one small point. So it's cool if your therapist can help you with that, but it's even cooler if you can learn how to do that for yourself. Um, Okay, this one was on the EFT video about tapping into self love. It said, "Thank you for sharing the helpful affirmations." I'm so glad. Yay. I love sharing different affirmations. So I have an idea. There's been a lot of life happening since I announced this to my email list, but I have an idea to transform the self care bundle into more of a membership where at least once a month, more, we'll say, I don't want to overcommit, of offering another new self care practice or something like that. So, like guided meditations, affirmations, journaling, different activities around self care or mindfulness. So, if you're interested in that, definitely get on my email list if you're not already. Signing up for the self care bundle right now will get you on there. Um, but those people are going to be the first to know when it opens, and they will get first dibs. Okay, I don't have a date on that yet. So this was 3 ways to control anxiety attacks at school that actually work. This person said, "I'm not sure if I have panic in school because my first day of school is worse at and I can't breathe. I was scared in the class and my hands are shaking." Oh, I'm so sorry that you were dealing with that. Um, Again, I can't diagnose. Definitely sounds like some anxiety. And I want to keep in mind and remind y'all that anxiety is a very natural, human, necessary emotion. Anxiety is just telling us to wake up, pay attention, stay alert. There's something unfamiliar and therefore potentially dangerous about the situation. So let's proceed with caution. That's all that anxiety is trying to do in those moments. However, the way our anxiety manifests physically, it doesn't always know if the danger is like a red high alert threat or if it's like a mild, like, this is like a little bit different until we tell it. And so some of us have an overreactive anxiety response because past experiences have made us feel that way or made us uncomfortable. Um, or perhaps there's a biological component to that as well, which is where working with a psychiatrist or psychiatric APRN who is skilled in those areas can help with that if biology is a factor. Um, okay. I hope that those tips did help, though, with controlling anxiety for you, whether or not it is clinical anxiety or natural change anxiety. Um, if you are wanting more help with that, we actually was it? Yeah, it was this month, just a few weeks ago in the coping skills crash course. The monthly call was about coping with changes, so we went through some strategies specifically for that. So if you are a member of the coping skills crash course, if you are an active student, that's already in the portal. It's been in there a few weeks. It's on the private podcast version too. That's easier for you. If you want access to that or to any of the live calls that we're doing, highly recommend that you sign up to be part of the coping skills crash course. We're always looking to help and serve more people, and it's a cool group of people. I think so, actually. Okay, so and you do not need to be a counseling client for that because it's not psychotherapy. It's a guided self help program. So just want to clarify that. Okay. This was a therapist on should I cover my self harm scars. This person said, I say no. I don't cover mine as I have nothing to be ashamed of, period. Oh, yes. I love the confidence there. Yes. Love it. Um, yeah. And I'm really, really proud that you are not proud, but I'm really impressed that you are able to own your decision and feel comfortable with it. For some people, it's personal, person to person. And that's part of what that video is about is helping you make the decision that's best for you. Not what somebody else thinks is best for you, but what you know is best and right for you. And not everybody's going to agree. And it may change situation to situation and person to person. And that is quite all right. All right. So this is coping with summertime and depression, the other seasonal depression. Okay, this is a long one, so I'm just going to take a sip. By the way, thank y'all for showing up and hanging out with me. This is fun. Okay. This person said, I'm glad more people are talking about this. I feel awful in the summer. It's often too hot, too bright, and the air is stale. My feet swell. Oh, me too. I just retain more water in general and feel lethargic and bloated. Nothing looks good on me, and I gain weight more than lose. As a woman, these are the months my period pains are worse as well. All this causes me to feel miserable. I'm on the East Coast, me too, so I am blessed to have seasons. As soon as the leaves start to fall, every cell in my body feels activated. I even go to the beach in the fall and winter months. I'm so, so glad that you were able to find that video about summertime depression. Um, you know, Seasonal depression actually is not a clinical diagnosis. Um, Depression does tend to come throughout different seasons, and oftentimes people will talk about it, particularly with like the winter blues, right? But depression can pop up any time of year. Um, I think it has a lot to do with change and changes, and different changes are going to impact different people differently. Um, I'm really, really impressed again that you are already aware of what is contributing to this so that you can apply different coping strategies and cope ahead with this. This is great. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with that, of course. I mean, it does suck, right? But being aware about what's contributing and then what's in your control on how you can address that is going to be where that work happens for improving your mental health and potentially your physical health too. Okay. So this person said, hello, when I face a problem, my body shakes, I feel difficulty speaking, my heart rate increases, and I feel excessive sweating. What do these symptoms indicate? And are they symptoms of anxiety or panic attacks? Um, Hard to tell. So, a lot of symptoms can overlap with a lot of different diagnoses. So, that is why it is so important that you link up with a therapist in your area. Um, so, they can do a full clinical assessment based on your circumstances in context with what's happening for you. Um, Again, social media is not psychotherapy. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. So we cannot do that over social media. We cannot do that without an established client arrangement. There's a lot of legal and ethical concerns with that, but also you want to make sure that whoever is offering a diagnosis or an assessment is getting a quality overlook and overview of everything. So just picking out and cherry picking some of the things without the full context, you're not going to get an accurate assessment without that. Okay. So this was on separation anxiety tips for teens. They said, I am a young newlywed. Oh, let me say that again. I am a young newlywed, no longer a teen, but I was 19 when we got married. Congratulations. And struggle a lot with being separated from my husband, especially if I have to go to sleep and when he's not home. His current job sometimes requires that he stays late into the night, so this was really helpful. Thank you. I'm so glad that that video was helpful. Um, and yes, I talk about a lot of these mental health videos and viewpoints and things from the stance of helping teenagers because that's the work that I do. Um, so I will tell you, I am well beyond the teenage years at this point, just a little bit older. Um, I won't say how old I am. I mean, you could probably figure it out. It's not that hard. But I use all of these strategies that I share myself. These are lifelong strategies that we talk about. So I think it's really cool when you are a teenager and you're getting help young because you're really building a strong foundation for later in life. A lot of the things that I share and talk about, I did not find out about until I was actually training to be a therapist or I already was a therapist. And I was like, where was this when I was a kid? Oh, I would have had like such a different experience. Um, I don't necessarily know if it would be better or worse because I had the experience that I had, but I wish that these are things that I had had when I was a teenager, which is why I share them now. And I try my best not to gatekeep with any of that, which is why I offer, like, I think we're over 300 free videos out here on YouTube now, which is like pretty cool. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. Please be mindful of where you're getting it from. I personally really, really love that YouTube actually differentiates now when it's a licensed professional that's sharing this and not just somebody showing up and ranting on YouTube. And they do qualify you. It took like months to get qualified, even though I've been a therapist for over 10 years now. Okay. So this person said about what therapist asked at your first appointment. This helped, but I'm still utterly terrified. My first session is in a couple of weeks. Oh, I'm so happy for you. So I really, really hope that it goes well for you. Um, that feeling of feeling terrified, I hope it's not like a full on terrified. Maybe it's a little excitement or like curiosity. If you can like try to pivot in that direction. I've actually been thinking about creating something for y'all to help if you're feeling nervous about therapy. So if that is something that you are or could be interested in, please let me know. If there's interest, I will create it. Um, okay. This person said, I go to a fake account, depression chat room, and say everything. Oh, so again, social media and the internet is not psychotherapy. I would also please be considerate. Don't like trauma dump in those situations. It can feel really, really great when you're the person that is venting or dumping. Um, but in like a depression chat room, there are probably other people who are also having experiences or learning how to deal with certain experiences. And so you want to be mindful about that. One of the great things about working with a therapist is we are literally trained to sit and be present and be with you through those sort of things. And we have our own level of support outside of the therapy room. So if something is happening in the therapy room, where so there is transference, which is actually where a lot of the work comes from. That's where the something in the client is getting activated in therapy, and we can talk about it or work through it. And then there is countertransference, where something in the therapist is being activated by that session. And so a mindful, intentional therapist will be aware if their countertransference is popping up and being able to talk about it appropriately and seek support from clinical consultation or supervision outside of the therapy room. I have a lovely consultation group that I'm part of. I've been a part of a few different ones over the years, just different circumstances that popped up. Um, and it's so vitally important to have that space and energy because if not, it is going to show up in the therapy room and that's going to affect your client's care. That's what it's about. Um, okay. And if you're looking for like that community support, highly recommend group therapy. I love group therapy. I think it is like the bee's knees. I see a lot of good positive support from that. I actually just had a conversation today, actually, that that somebody was sharing about how their teenager always said they hated therapy, they didn't want to go, yada yada, and then they had talked to them about joining one of the groups that I run, and now they're like, I can't miss therapy. It is a cool environment when you find a group that you vibe with, and that can help. Okay, so this person, okay, this is a conversation. So there's a few back and forth. So this was a recent video that I posted about what therapists do when you cry in therapy. And so if you're not familiar with the short, it's where I'm showing that we're just emotionally, mindfully, nonchalantly interested. That was my um, impression for, or that was my intention that I was trying to impress upon the viewers. Um, Now, of course, this is the problem with anything that's like virtual because you're not having a direct conversation. And this is why we can't do clinical assessments or diagnosing over social media because it is open to interpretation. And so, even though my intention was something, it can be interpreted a variety of different ways. And this one was. So I actually intentionally saved this one for this discussion. Um, so this person said, Your non reaction actually makes me feel very uncomfortable. Reminds me of my sociopathic father who also just watched me cry and didn't give much of a reaction. I think it needs to be better to ask what the client needs instead of assuming what you offer is a safe space. Because what someone perceives as a safe space and what you think it is can be two very different things. So ask them what they need and not assume. I'm going to read through this all and then I'll respond. Somebody else wrote back, I agree, this can be very distressing and induce paranoia in already hypervigilant clients with PTSD, etc. PTSD stands for post traumatic stress disorder. I think that blank slate approach is great for ASPD. Um, they crave reaction for malicious intent. So, ASPD, I'm not sure if they were referencing Asperger's diagnosis or if they meant antisocial personality disorder. Those are both similar acronyms, so sometimes people interchange them. And then this person said, yes, for ASPD, it might work. I'm actually diagnosed with CPTSD. We have the ICD here. CPTSD means chronic post traumatic stress disorder, which actually isn't a clinically recognized diagnosis, even though in the mental health therapy world, we know we're on it. We've been trying for years. um, and it is quite distressing looking. I had a therapist who did turn themselves into a blank slate. She's a psychoanalyst, and it did not work out for me. I changed, but I think CBT with the feeling of interacting with an actual person is much better for me. I understand professional distance and do not expect a therapist to be my friend or tell me anything about their lives, but just give me normal human interaction, please, nothing artificial. I also think anyone who had a sociopathic, narcissistic, or autistic parent, just watching them as children when they were hurting and not helping at all, potentially finds her reaction scary. Autism, of course, is something completely different, but depending on where on the spectrum someone is, they also might give no reaction without that intent to a child crying or hurting, or not understanding what to do with a crying, upset child, so not really reacting at all. And that can also be stressful and scary. Okay, so I'm going to offer my responses to this now. So first of all, I'm so proud of you and like impressed that you actually know what works and doesn't work for you. You are already aware that a certain presentation or a certain way of looking or responding is not going to be a helpful reaction for you in the therapy room. And for that, I think that is amazing and awesome that you can notice it, name it, and articulate it, and also recognize what it is that you do need to feel supported and validated. all huge, huge things. So I'm not knocking that at all. Um, I also do think that going into a diagnosis it can be really scary and troubling because diagnosis is very helpful for naming a collection of symptoms and the way it impacts somebody. Um, but ultimately, we're treating the impact of those symptoms. We're not necessarily treating a diagnosis, we're treating the person and what their experience is. So, I personally and professionally have a hard time when people say, "Oh, this works for everybody with this condition," or "This is the approach for this condition," because it really is personal, personal, person. I personally am a relational therapist, so I totally understand that. My intention with this it was actually on the flip side of things. I happen to work with a lot of um, teens that feel like they're going to be a burden or they're actually going to upset their therapist if they cry or show emotion because that's what their experience has been. So I kindly thank you for sharing your experience with the flip side because that is actually very valid and very true as well. But I also think that it is not a one size fits all approach, and I hope you guys know at this point, if you've seen any of my other videos, including this one, I'm pretty personable. I'm not like a sit back blank slate, but I'm also not going to be like overly reactive or like super over the top with my responses, especially if you're needing to fill the room with emotion. As long as we are both safe, um, I'm okay with that. And I will sit there with you through that, even if it feels uncomfortable. That is what I'm here for. And that's what I meant by it being a safe space. So I also appreciate you offering me the opportunity to respond to this. Okay. So we are already about an hour in. So I think actually we have one, yeah, we have a few more. So I think I'm going to call it for this one. Thank you, everybody who has been here. I will do a second call like this if you guys are interested. Um, and just let me know. I'll post. I'm not sure what my schedule is looking like yet, so I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after, but I will share on the community tab here. And if you're on the email list, of course, you'll get the email as well. But I'll do a second one to finish up this stuff because I didn't even get to the Instagram comments. So those will be coming up. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I really, really appreciate you all. And again, if you have anything that I didn't respond to, or if you want to continue the conversation, please make use of comments here. And yeah, have a great rest of your evening. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching.